Good morning, fourth graders. We're back here for a read aloud today. I hated to leave off at the last read aloud because we learned that Charlie and Davis and the boys, their father, Robert, is going to have to go back in and have more surgery. And we found out that Charlie is not going to be able to stop and see um, Tiberius Shaw's property and go give him the green journal that he wanted to give him. Instead, they're headed to the hospital for their dad's surgery to make sure that he's doing well. So we're starting off with chapter 38. The next morning, precisely at 6 a.m., we meet Graham in the lobby of the strange new Virginia hospital. It's odd to see her in this totally out of place. Graham has one of her sweatsuits on. She wears sweatsuits all the time, even though I've never seen her sweat. Still, today, she looks messy. Her short silver hair is sticking out all over instead of smooth and high like her usual hair helmet. She looks like she's been sleeping on a couch or in a chair by Dad's bed like she used to in the early days back in San Diego. Hark the weary travelers, Graham says, opening her arms. Where's my hugs? Joel, why on earth are you wearing that wig? Charlie, did you grow another inch since I've seen you? Hugs, please. The new hospital has dirty smudges from millions of hands around door handles and corners. No potted palm trees, orange couches, or gift shop in sight. No Ellie in her blue vest. No little bird sculptures waiting for me on a shelf. I think, this is where they sent Dad? This is where the expert brain surgeons work? But when we get upstairs to the special neurology unit, it's a little more reassuring. It's cleaner and newer, with a modern-looking nurses' station. A bunch of nurses talk on phones and write in charts. Ludmilla is dressed crazier than usual. That green dog collar. The combat boots with the flowery dress. It seems like the more stressed out things are, the crazier Ludmilla dresses. We all troop and clomp down the hall after Graham. She stops at Dad's door and then turns and looks at us with watery eyes, her hand on the knob. The timing stinks. As it turns out, we only have a few minutes. And then there is Dad, sitting up at his new hospital bed. There's a little piece of toilet paper stuck to his chin with a tiny red dot in the center, a shaving nick. He used to let me watch him shave. He'd even spread a layer of his thick, creamy shaving foam along the side of the tub and tell me to write the alphabet in it when I was little. I love the clean smell of it on my hands. Dad's got a green hospital gown on, his arms at his sides. He looks like he's in the dark and someone's shining a flashlight in his face and he can't figure out where the light is coming from. Hi, Daddy-O, says Davis, really extra loud. Hi, Dad, says Joel, knocking gently on his helmet. Oh, for crying out loud, don't knock on it, numbskull, says Graham. What, did you forget everything already? Dad squints at Joel and Jake. He reaches out his hand to them and smiles. Don't worry about it, champs, he says. It is the first time we've heard his voice in so long. It only comes out of the right half of his mouth, and it's a little slurred and raspy, but it's definitely Dad. That's when everyone starts crying. But I don't cry. I just stand by the door, by the hand sanitizer pump, breathing hard. Breathe in. Breathe out. I need to tell Dad I've found almost all of the birds on our someday list, but I don't think now is the time. Too much is happening too fast. A big, dark-skinned nurse in a bright pink top comes in and clasps her hands. All right, family, she sings. It's time. Graham straggles up from her seat. Davis locks her arms around Dad's neck like she won't let go without a fight, and he smiles at her and pats her hand. Graham's face looks like a wrinkled up Kleenex. The nurse's voice gets softer. Come on now, folks. Don't you worry because you've got Dr. Spielman, and he is amazing. Your dad made so much progress already, and Dr. Spielman is going to fix it to make sure he can keep on making more progress. He'll take very good care of Robert, but we have to stay on schedule here. Two orderlies come in with a gurney, which is what you call one of those table beds on wheels. The big nurse keeps clapping her hands, trying to scatter us like pigeons. They send us to a separate neurology waiting room. It's across a sky bridge in a newer section of the hospital on the other side of the street. The twins pound across, testing its strength. I tiptoe after them and stop in the middle to look out the window at the traffic below. I am up high, like a bird, floating above the street. Charlie, Graham calls, move your keister. Something gray flutters toward me. A mourning dove lands on the outside ledge. There's only an inch of glass separating her from my hand. She has no idea I'm right here so close to her. She coos, and I can almost feel the vibration on my palm. I used to think it was mourning dove, as in the time of day, not mourning dove, as in grieving. Charlie! The dove spooks and flies away. This new waiting room has low green couches, a coffee table, an annoying news show blaring on a flat screen TV. It also has Nintendo 64. Mario! Joel and Jake shout, flopping down together on a floor cushion. Joel flings Ludmilla's wig off into a corner and hands his brother a controller. They sit shoulder to shoulder. My two brothers are sticking to each other like glue today. Davis looks pale. Her mouth is set in a straight line. Visual cue. Fear? Worry? Love? Graham has dark wedges of purple tiredness underneath her watery blue eyes. She rubs them as the video game theme song starts. It clashes with the sound from the television, where twin blonde ladies in red, white, and blue outfits shout at us, while photos of soldiers flash in the background. Graham clicks it off with the remote and says, Crazy nonsense. You can't hear yourself think. It's going to be a long surgery. They're going to drill back inside my dad's head and fix another small spot they found that's swollen and bleeding. It's a problem that they think they might have missed the first time around. It was a small thing, but it's gotten worse, so they have to do it. They say they have to fix it. Dr. Spielman is old and gray-haired like Graham. He looks like he could play a doctor on TV. He spends a lot of time talking to Graham, holding and patting her hand and talking in a soft voice. He says he'll come out to give us regular updates. I keep my backpack right by me, with Shaw's little green journal by my side, as well as my bird book. I think about the mourning dove. I close my eyes and remember the feel of her vibration against the glass. The small, neat head, the streamlined body. I take my pencil and begin to sketch. The door back into the surgery area has a long rectangular window. I see a doctor in a blue surgical cap come up to that window, look out at us, and then turn around and go back down the hall. What does that mean? Davis nudges Graham, looking at the door. Lord knows, says Graham. She is knitting a small, round, blue wool disc on needles that are connected by some kind of tubing. What is that, Graham? I ask. A cap for your father, she says, adjusting the bag of wool at her feet. I look in. There are at least a dozen caps in there already. An hour passes. 2. My butt aches, my knees ache, my head aches. I notice Dr. Spielman, the surgeon, in the window of the surgical area. He has blue scrubs, a blue hat. He peers out at us and motions with his hand for Graham to come forward. She freezes for a minute and then puts down her knitting needles. The doctor opens the door for her. She slips in and they stand there so we can just barely see them through the long, narrow window that's set in the door. Davis and I watch, frozen. I grip the green plastic armrests of the chair so hard I have wrist cramps. We can see part of Graham, her profile, and we can see the doctor's chest and arms. He's gesturing with his hands. He's making a cutting motion. Now his hands are palms up like he's offering something to Graham, but his hands are empty, and then he shrugs. What does it mean? Now, through the narrow rectangle, we see that Graham is putting her face in her own hands. Her shoulders slump forward and she starts to shake. The doctor's hands go down to his sides, hanging useless. What are these visual cues? In the pit of my stomach, a terrible realization starts to form. Then it travels to my feet and becomes a rumble. A rumble in my feet is not good. When I was little and something bad or scary would happen, or just something that confused me so much I got afraid from my own not knowingness, I would start to feel this rumble at my feet. And when the rumble shot up through my body and burst through the top of my head, I would run. One day, in 5th grade, I got called to the principal's office. I didn't know what for. It turned out to be some dumb reason, like I was missing a field trip slip, but earlier that day, I'd gotten pushed by David Gomez at recess and had pushed him back, so I was scared. The principal was a mean man. I was so scared that my feet wouldn't let me go in his office. I came down the main hall intending to turn right, but at the last minute, my rumble feet changed their mind and ran me out the front door, across the parking lot, and down the street. It was like I had no control at all. My head went blank. I ran blind. I just followed my frantic feet. I ended up running into the public library next door. I hid in a corner of the children's section. After a while, a librarian noticed me huddled there rocking and got me to confess. When she turned me back to school, Dad was there, all wild-eyed, worried, and upset. They'd even called the police. Dad hugged me tight and made me promise not to ever get rumble feet again. I'd had to stand there and let him hug me for what felt like forever, and I had to promise. But today, I can't keep that promise. My feet are rumbling now like they rumbled then. I need to go. I watch Graham's shoulders shaking behind the door, and I can't stand it. The rumble is shooting up through my body, out of the top of my head. I need to go. I'm gone. Across the glass sky bridge, down the stairs, and out the street, frantic, following my feet at the entrance, I see the wide open yellow door of a taxi and a person getting out of it with a walker, and I almost knock him over. I'm in such a rush to get myself and my backpack and my pounding heart and my rumble feet into that cab. "Where to?" says the driver in an accent that's kind of like Ludmilla's as he pulls away from the curb. I tell him. This is called Rare Birds, and there's a picture of the Carolina parakeet there. And this is chapter 39. Take a sip of my coffee before I start. And there is a big quote by Tiberius Shaw. It says, "I take the southern entrance by the visitor center and wend my way inward through and across the marsh for some time north and east. After a while, a stand of deep, dark pine and cedar appears like a mirage, shimmering on its own island hill, with no apparent way to reach it. But there is always an approach to the unreachable. Persist, move closer, and the treasure rises up like a gift. My hidden refuge within this refuge, its roof of the greenest of greens." Tiberius Shaw. In my backpack is my wallet with practically a year of allowance money. I don't really need to spend allowance on anything, as a rule, and a small bottle of Purell. Also, 2 granola bars, my bird book, my sketching pencils, and Shaw's green journal. In my head is nothing. The fear I felt in the cab is gone, but the rumble in my feet is still propelling me on through the deep gray morning mist of this endless marsh. I'm calm now. I only think about the path. There are 100,000 streams, creeks, and rivers threaded through this place, but this is the path, I'm sure. I concentrate on the path, only on the path. There are lots of dark green piney patches around here, according to Google Earth, but looking northeast about 5 miles from the visitor center, humans walk at 2 miles an hour times 2+ hours. I did notice a house with a green roof on a little bit of land jutting out into the bay. I figure it's got to be that house. It's the only house that fits Shaw's description for miles around. Shaw's house. I'm heading for it. The trail goes from pebbly shoreline path to wooden boardwalk over marshland. Thick green reeds that Shaw describes as eelgrass shoot up every which way. Brown cattails stick out of the mud. Dragonflies dance in the drizzle. A great blue heron, maybe 5 yards to my right, suddenly whooshes up and heaves himself into the sky, flapping and complaining at me with a call that sounds like a truck's rusty brake. I guess I disturbed his breakfast. Well, he disturbed me too. My heart is jumping in my chest now, and I realize I'm the only one around. There is no other sign of humans anywhere. Usually I would like this. Usually this would calm me. But right now, it's feeling a little spooky. I walk for about an hour, just one foot in front of the other, not thinking too much. I just try to get closer to the area that juts out from the bay. That's all I'm concentrating on. Step after step in my old, tired-looking Crocs. After about forever, the mist lifts a bit. I can see something like a dark green blur that has to be a stand of pines, but I never seem to get closer to it. I'm farther off than I was when I started. All of a sudden, I hear someone talking, faint but distinct. It's a tour guide kind of voice, and people are murmuring replies and clomping along. I try to avoid them, but somehow I walk right into a small group of birders perched on the boardwalk. I feel scared and embarrassed, but there's nothing to do but stand there with them at the back of their flock. "Yes, folks," says the guide, "climate change is impacting the biodiversity of this precious place in serious ways. We have to make some hard decisions if we want to keep it vibrant for our kids and grandkids." A lady in a khaki baseball cap nods and smiles at me. I nod back. Then she suddenly turns and points out into the reeds. "There's that heron again." I nod and smile for real now. I have to stay with this group because we're all going in the right direction. According to Shaw's Green Journal, and actually after all this time walking alone, I have to admit, it's kind of nice to be walking along behind the flock of birders. They're quiet and calm. They care about birds. I could almost feel like I could belong to a group like this. We're getting to the spot, according to Shaw's book, where there should be that small stand of pines on the spit of land overlooking the marsh. I peer carefully at the tree line, trying hard to find the outline of a house, any house. A man next to me notices me staring. "What do you see over there? Osprey?" He trains his binoculars. I wish I had binoculars. "Actually," I say, "I'm looking for a house. Do you maybe see a house somewhere in those trees?" "Well, let me look." "Yes, I do. I see a little brown house with a green roof," he says. "What about it?" My stomach drops to my knees. I swear he's got to be kidding, but he's totally serious. "Really?" He hands me his binoculars. Sure enough, There's the glint of a reflection on a red framed window. The roof is dark green with shiny edges. I cry out loud, "It's really there!" The whole group of birders gets very excited and whisper, "What? What is it?" They all train their binoculars on the stand of pines and murmur quietly to each other, trying to figure out what I saw. The tour guide taps me on the shoulder. I jump. He has a bushy brown beard hanging down the front of his green warden's shirt. "What are you looking for, youngster?" he says. "Can you tell me, do you know if, well, maybe if that's Tiberius Shaw's house?" His eyebrows shoot way up. "Tiberius Shaw? Do we have a Tiberius Shaw fan here then?" He smiles and shakes his head. "That's not his place, no. I happen to know the old lady who lives in that little house. Great location. She's a big supporter of the sanctuary. Nice old gal." He turns to the group of birders. "But this boy asked about Shaw. Haven't heard that name in a while. Remember him? Bird guru, did a lot of work around these here parts years ago." They nodded politely. You know when they say your heart sinks? I feel like mine is as low as the mud we're walking over. If Shaw doesn't even live here anymore, what am I doing in this stupid sanctuary? But if Shaw doesn't live here, then what did he mean by my hidden refuge within this refuge, its roof, the greenest green? I walk slower and slower until I've left the tour group behind. I rumble along the wooden boardwalks on my own, moving like a robot, like a droid. There are miles and miles of boardwalks and walking paths. And of course, those 100,000 creeks, streams, and rivers. No wonder I got it wrong. Did I think it would be that easy? The soft gray morning fog is gone now, and the sun shines harsh, leaving nowhere to hide. It's beautiful, though, glinting bright silver on the water. It has no right to be beautiful on a day like today. I notice birds, but I don't care anymore. Wrens try to cheer me up with their tweety, chirrupy songs, but it doesn't help. There are marsh birds, shorebirds, and two dark brown and white osprey diving and soaring from nests on high wooden platforms that someone built right there, high up over the marsh. But I can barely lift my feet. I'm slow, sluggish, heavy. I was so sure my guess was right. So sure that today was the day I would finally find Tiberius Shaw. So I could finally ask him my big question. Here's another quote from Tiberius. "I lost my mother at birth, and my father passed away when I was 12. It was nature that raised me. I was a child of forest and field, and kind relatives lent a hand. Forest, field, and family. And I gained a glimmer of real wisdom there along the way about how to survive." Tiberius Shaw, PhD. My big question for Dr. Tiberius Shaw, PhD, is, what was it? What was the glimmer of real wisdom you gained that helped you survive? My steps slow to a stop. I crouch down in a small ball right there on the boardwalk and put my arms around my knees and rock. I am practically face down on the walk. I peer through the cracks between the boards and watch a bug, a water skater, sluicing by on his long legs across the brown water. I scan the roots of reeds, my eyes close to the ground. I'm not looking for anything anymore. I don't care about anything anymore. That's when I notice something peculiar. There are some pressed down reeds branching off from one side of the boardwalk. It takes me a minute to realize it's a path. There's a small piece of green cloth tied to a reed about a yard out to mark the place. It's a path that's barely a path. Something someone has tramped through just enough times. And perched on a branch at the far end, right before it turns, I see a strange bird. A bird I've seen only in a book, but I swear I see it. It couldn't possibly be. It's a little green parrot with a little yellow head and red-orange patches. A bird that used to live around these parts more than 200 years ago. An extinct bird. It's impossible. But there it is. Or I'm really going crazy. A little Carolina parakeet sitting on a reed stalk and whistling at me. There used to be millions of them back in Audubon's time, Dad said, and I read about it. They lived from southern New York and the lower Midwest all the way through the South. They were the only Native American parakeets. They were pretty and made nice pets, but they were also stupid. No survival instinct. Farmers shot them for eating fruit and seed, and they never learned to fly away. They'd just stick around, fluttering in the field like, what the heck? What's that shooting? Is somebody killing us? Hundreds would die within the minutes. The whole species got killed off within a century. Or did they? The yellow-headed parakeet flits from reed to reed down the narrow, reedy path. I follow. I step off the boardwalk. Water squelches through the holes in my Crocs. I shudder, but I can't stop looking at the fluttering wings up ahead. I don't think about the cold, muddy water or Shaw. I don't think about getting lost. I don't think about Dad or Ludmilla or the twins or Davis or Tiberius stuck all alone in Graham's hotel room. I don't think about Graham. I try not to think about how horrible it is to wear soaking wet socks. There's nothing I can do about any of this anymore. I don't think about anything except the little green back of the parakeet who shouldn't exist, but who is just ahead of me, flitting through the tall reeds. He leads me through this jungle for so long, I'm starting to think the world's turned into one big reed marsh. But finally, we come to the bank of a narrow stream. It's strewn with mossy stepping stones. Above the tinkling water, a flash of green. The Carolina parakeet still there whistling. I strain to memorize his song in case I lose sight of him and have to track him by sound. Tweet, tweet. I place my foot carefully down on the first slimy stone. It holds. I stutter my way slowly across, slipping and jerking, but I make it to the very end. By the other bank, I step off and sink knee-deep in muddy, stinky ooze. Tweet, tweet, sings a probably extinct bird somewhere deeper in a thicket of green. Am I going crazy? In my haze, I notice that on this side of the stream, heading into the thicket, there is a path. By the path is a post. On the post is a green metal box with the outline of a gold feather painted on it in metallic paint. I don't see any house around. I look everywhere. No sign of one. Just a mailbox. No house. I take off my backpack. I take Shaw's green journal out of it. I look at the golden feather on the cover of my little book. I remember the feeling I got the first time I saw that image. So many days ago in the Twa Corby shop, way back across the country in Nevada, like a lifetime ago. It's the same image on book and box. The same feather. My heart is beating hard now, and not just from my slog across the stream. I open the metal mailbox. It's rusty. There's nothing in there but a spider web. Quickly, I flip through my own notebook and find a sketch I did a long time ago, right after Dad first told me about the Carolina parakeet. I based my drawing on Audubon's in his baby elephant portfolio. They were real, actual, live birds back when Audubon was living. He painted a bunch of them all fluttering around a flowering plant. So I had taken my colored pencils and sketched a grouping of them too. I rip out the sketch, take a pencil, think for a minute, and write a long note on the back, making sure not to get drips of mucky water on it. I write and write and write. Then I take the DNA brochure from my backpack, the one that Lady Helen at the Field Museum gave me with Tiberius Shaw's name listed as scientist donor for DNA genomic research. I fold the sketch and tuck it in the brochure into the Carolina parakeet page of Shaw's little green book. I put all 3 items together in the green metal mailbox and put up its rusty metal flag. I pause a minute to say goodbye to the green journal. It's been with me for a while. It's given me much to think about, but it's not really mine. The old green journal is Shaw's. The bird book is what's mine. Tweet! It's faint, and I hurry down the path. Tall reeds give way to more open brush, and soon I see another stand of little pines at the top of a rising hill. What is this new place? Will I finally see Shaw's house? My feet are still squishing and squelching water with every step. The skin on my nose and the back of my neck feels burned. I don't have any idea where I am on the map or how I'm going to get back, but I'm not thinking about it. I just want to know where that Carolina parakeet went. So when I reach the top of the rise, I gasp. On the rise, there's no house. What there is instead, a tall, thick stand of pine trees, their branches filled with the flutter and chirp of Carolina parakeets, as well as a few buntings, thrushes, wrens, and other birds of different sizes and shapes. There are flashes and flitters and winging around. There's hopping and chirping on branches. It's a bird party. I approach slowly, but the action doesn't stop. They don't seem afraid of me. I sit carefully down on a soft bed of pine needles, smelling the pine smell, taking in deep, lung-filling breaths of it, and looking up at the birds. If you look, really look, you can see that the trees are filled with nests and knotholes with bird action, with Carolina parakeets dodging in and out. I let my ears fill with the summer sounds. I don't quite understand, but feel soothed by. I think I fall asleep for a while, leaning back on my backpack. I'm perfectly alone here, but not afraid. The world is so far behind, I don't have to think about it. This is peace. This is a type of house. Maybe this is what Shaw meant by his refuge within this refuge. Maybe he didn't mean a real house with doors and windows and such. Maybe this sanctuary is what he meant. And we're going to have to stop right there because we've already read for 30 minutes. So I will see you tomorrow for the rest of this chapter, and we'll see how far we get. There's not too much to the end of our story. The plot thickens. All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Have a great day. Bye.